Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Robert Bear, and he's going to tell us about his near-death experience. Hi, Robert.
Hi, Peggy. Thank you for having me on your podcast. And I hope everybody in the audience will enjoy what I have to say. Um, I am Robert Bear. I am a near-death experiencer. My entire life was spent up until the time that I passed, was spent doing things that were like in black and white nature. Um, I'd been a policeman for 23 years, 22 with the California Highway Patrol, 1 year with the Santa Cruz Police Department. I'd been a university professor. I'd been a city manager, tribal administrator, and an international business consultant, a general manager. But every role that I had, I had a lot of power over people.
You were the former vice president of IANDS, correct?
Correct. I was on the IANDS board, was vice president, resigned from that with Yvonne Cason, who was the president of IANDS at the time. And we felt we had a calling to start another organization, which we did, which is Spiritual Awakenings International. And Peggy, we are now, a year and a half later, we are now in 75 countries in two languages, English and Espanol. Today I spent time with the Espanol people with a presentation, and it's just going like wildfire.
Awesome.
And places that you would never, like Tasmania and Liechtenstein, and places that you never would expect experiencers to link. But that's what's happened. And
It's amazing.
we're probably one of the fastest growing and probably have some of the most subscribers of any organization. That's in a year and a half.
Good.
So thank you for bringing that up. Getting back to my life, I I I had some unusual things that happened in the year 2008. I had a friend of mine call me, and we had been policemen together in the 60s and the 70s, and we were really good friends. And you got a really good friend when you call somebody or they call you, and the conversation kind of continues from the last time you talked to them.
Timeless.
And we were talking, and then he says, Robert, I have to ask you something. I feel compelled to ask you something. And I said, oh, what is it? And he said, are you right with the Lord? And I said, why are you asking that? He goes, I just feel like I should ask you that. And I said, well, I think I am. And we just continued to talk. And I didn't think much of it at the time. But a short time later, I was in bed, and I got woke up in the middle of the night. And at the foot of my bed was my mother, who passed away in 2005. Now, this was 2008 that I'm talking about. I saw her at the foot of my bed, and she was absolutely beautiful, all in white and young, like when I was a little boy. And I mean, I thought it was a dream, but it was not a dream. And she talked to me, and I don't know how she did it. It might have been telepathically, but she told me to get my affairs in order and that I was going to be dying soon. And it just totally shocked me. And she disappeared. And I was so upset. And part of the reason I was upset, I had her right there, and I should have told her that I loved her. I didn't think fast enough. Of course, I had been woken up from a deep sleep, but it just really upset me. And um, I couldn't sleep anymore. Um, I called my father, who was elderly, and of course he wanted to know what she looked like and if she asked about him or whatever. And I said no. I told him exactly what was said, and just kind of let it be at that time. And I was scheduled to have a full physical where you have a um, blood test, urine test, and you have like a treadmill type thing. So um, in the back of my mind, I thought, I wonder what's going on here. So I had my full physical, passed it with flying colors. So then I just kind of put everything in the back of my mind. And then my friend that had called me and asked me if I was right with the Lord, he died. He passed away. And I went down to California to help out. I spoke at his celebration of life and kind of did a eulogy because I think I had known him longer than anybody else that was there that wasn't family, and I just had a wonderful time with everybody, and came home and um, I'd scheduled to take a trip to Arizona. My son's a high school, or was at the time, a high school football, baseball, and basketball coach, and he always had like a spring break. So I would go down there and we would go to spring training games. Um, and it was just something we did every year. And it's a chance to have time with him and my granddaughters. So it was hot down there. I'm from a coastal climate. I'm used to like 60-degree weather, or maybe if it's hot around 70 degrees. It was 100 degrees down there or close to it. And I just didn't feel good the whole time I was there. And I love seeing everybody, but I was actually looking forward to getting back to Oregon, which is where I live. And it came time for me to leave. And my son dropped me off at the airport, and we said our goodbyes. And I didn't feel well. And I went into the airport and I saw this long TSA line. I thought, how am I going to do this? Because I wasn't feeling good. It just kept getting worse. And I thought, well, I'm going to John Wayne this thing and make it to Oregon, and I bet I'll feel better when I get home. So I made it through the TSA line, stopped in a little convenience market that they had at the airport, bought some aspirins, took them. It's a good thing I did, probably. And boarded the plane. And as I started to board the plane, I putting stuff in the upper overhead bin. And this was March 22nd of 2009. I dropped dead of a massive heart attack right on the plane. And I was so fortunate. There were two off-duty firemen from the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, that were on the flight, and a doctor, and they knew how to do a defibrillator and CPR and everything. And they did it to me, but I don't remember any of that. As Peggy, I gravitated into a light, and there was somebody with me. And I left out one thing that was important, that prior to going to Arizona, I had another incident happen where I was in bed, woke up, and there was my friend that had died at the foot of the bed. And he was young, like when we were really young. And he had told me that he was going to bring me through the light. And I don't know how he talked to me again. It might have been telepathically. But I was in a deep sleep. I woke up and I said, what do you mean? He goes, I have to go. I want to go visit my grandkids in Sacramento. He just disappeared. Well, by the way, I made some calls after that, and confirmed that his grandkids did live in Sacramento. I didn't know that.
Do you give Bixby permission
Sorry.
to access your
All
data?
right,
Why it's doing that?
don't worry about it. Mine might go off. I don't think so. I put it on vibrate. But anyways, when I was gravitating in this light, there was somebody with me. I honestly don't know who it was, but if I had to bet money, my friend, and we were policemen together. I mean, we were so tight. I have a feeling he was with me, accompanied me, but I went into this light, and Peggy, it was just one of the most wonderful feelings you could ever imagine. It was just, everything was just peace and love, and there were colors that don't exist in this earth. It was just phenomenal what I had experienced. But I ended up right in the presence of a higher power, and I could not look at the higher power. It was, I'm just telling you, it was very humbling. I just couldn't do it. And it spoke to me. He spoke to me. And I don't know what language. Maybe it was telepathically. But I understood what he said. And he asked me a question. What good have I done in my life? And the next thing I know, off to my left was a life review. And it started from the day I was conceived until the day that I died. And I saw every aspect of my life laid out right in front of me. And I could feel the emotions again from all the things that I experienced. But the unusual thing was the people that I interacted with or that were there, I knew their feelings and their thoughts about me. And it was not something that I would have ever believed. It was, to me, it was a reckoning. I had a lot of power. You know, you arrest people, you fire people, you do. I was in sports. I was a pitcher. I played baseball, basketball, football, and quite frankly, pitching. I was very nasty. I would go right at somebody. If I hit them, I hit them. That's just the way it was. My attitude was a reckoning for me, and I saw things just kind of laid out. I've talked about this before, and before I preference anything or explain anything else, I have to bring this up. Our society today, they just love seeing videos and pictures to substantiate what someone's gone through, or to just show what actually happened. Where I went, and where those other people who've had near-death experiences have gone, there's no videos,
Right.
there's no cameras. It's just what I remember and can recall. And I'm telling you, it takes a lot to put yourself out, because when you put yourself out, you automatically become someone that gets criticized, or people just, they don't know what to think. And but what I'm telling you and telling your audience is that this is what I remember happening. And a lot of life lessons. I love my grandmothers. They were so neat. One was almost blind. She had cataracts. Probably today she wouldn't be blind because of the surgeries they have. And my father built a home small little house behind our home, and we moved her in there, and all of us took the time to take care of her. My mother kind of assigned us different things, and I was really tight with my grandmother. And my other one, um, she she was great. I had a stuttering problem, and she kind of took the responsibility of working with me to try to get me to speak clear and not get so excited when I talked and so on and so forth. She put a lot of time in me, and I used to spend time with her. I could go visit her, and this was before television. But we would listen to the radio at night, and when I was interacting with her um, in my life review, I used to ask her the same question over and over again. Like she saw Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, and that was a big deal to me. I asked her to tell me about it, whether it was seeing Sitting Bull or whatever, and she would tell me about it. And about 10 minutes later, I'd ask her the same question, and she'd say, "Robert, I just told you about that," but she would still tell me. That's what grandparents do. And I used to sleep. She only had one bed, so if I spent the night there, I'd sleep in bed with her, and she'd snore all night. And I could hear this. I could hear the snoring in my life review, and I could smell her. She had people have their own odors, and I picked up on that in my life review. Uh, your senses are wide open, and what I experienced, Peggy, was nothing but truth in that entire situation I was in with a life review. As brutal as the truth is sometimes, I had to face it. And it was just laid out right in front of me. And when I was probably about 5 years old, we used to go drive to the store on Saturday, and my parents load everybody up in an old station wagon. Everybody didn't have seatbelts. Everybody running around the seats and everything. And I saw that, and I was thinking, oh, I forgot about that. About how wild everybody was. And anyways, we went, and I grew up in an Irish Catholic household. My mom was Catholic, and my dad was a great guy. Probably one of the nicest men I've ever known. Smart businessman. But I knew how to work my parents even at that age, and I actually caught myself doing it. There was a pack of baseball cards that I wanted really bad. It was a nickel. And I thought, I'm going to ask my dad. So I asked my dad, and my mom was in earshot. So my dad goes, "Ask your mother." And as soon as I heard that, I thought, I'm not going to get those cards. And my mother goes, what's he want? What's Robert want? And my dad said, well, have him ask. I said, can I have those baseball cards? And she goes, no. So I stole them. And we got home, unloaded. I was in my room, unwrapped the cards, and had a hard stick of gum in there. I just put that in my mouth, and my mother opened the door, and she goes, "Where did you get that from?" And I had to live this all over again. And she got so upset, she made my father load me in the car. They took me down to the store. I had to apologize to the store owner. And my mother says, "Yeah, take him to jail. This is unacceptable in our family." She just went off on a and I could read the mind of the store owner saying, "This kid's 5 years old. It's no big deal. Just give me the nickel." So, my father gave him the nickel, and I got grounded for, I don't even know how long, but it was a while. But my father was still alive when I told him about my life review. And my dad goes, Um, I thought that was pretty funny. And I didn't think it was funny. He says, well, your mom kind of got carried away, and I was afraid to laugh. And I said, well, it wasn't funny to me. And so I said, but you know something? You guys did your job
Yeah.
as a parent. And I thanked him for it.
Yeah.
And then he asked me, he said, did you say your life review began when you were conceived? And I said, yeah, it's a funny thing. I said, I remember seeing you and mom by an old Chevrolet. And I said, I remember seeing the Chevrolet. It was a black one. And he goes, you remember what your mother had on? And I said, yeah, she had like a plaid skirt on or something like that. And you guys were smiling and really happy. So my father said, wait a minute. So he went, found a box of old pictures, and he dug one up. And this picture, excuse me for a second. Thought I had it here. This picture had my mother and him next to each other, next to a 1938 Chevrolet. I said, that's the car that I saw. And I said, that's what mom was wearing. And that's exactly what I saw. He goes, and I said, I've never seen that picture before. And he goes, well, he said, that was probably one of the best days of your mother's life. I said, what do you mean? And he goes, that picture was taken the day that she found out she was pregnant with you. And then he said, we went down and got married. And I said, you mean that was a love child? And he goes, yes. She would kill me right now if this came out, because they always said they got married a year earlier than they did. And anyways, when I heard that and I saw that picture, I am convinced that life begins at conception. And it set the tone for the rest of the discussion with my father, for one thing, but for I'm trying to understand and unravel what happened to me during my life review. But everything kind of played out. Sports. I had a friend that was caught polio. Our class, there were like 7 kids that got polio, and they quarantined us. And one of my best friends at the time got really sick from it, and my father took me down to see him. He was in an iron lung. He was in a glassed off area. And I remember waving to him. He was in the iron lung. He could see me. And he died right after that. It was really sad. And just saw all these things kind of lay out. One of the things that I really haven't mentioned before, I was in high school and I made the baseball team as a freshman, and the coach moved me up to the varsity team. I was a pretty good ball player, and I was showering after practice one day, and one of the seniors grabbed me and threw me outside the door. And where he threw me was right by the swimming pool area where the girls' swimming team was practicing at the time. And he locked the door. And it was one of the most embarrassing moments I had in my life.
No.
And the women's swimming coach came over and gave me a towel and helped me get back in. I'm saying this for a reason. I'm going to speed up a little bit of my life review because this is pertinent. One of the last days of my career on the highway patrol, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit but I'm going to talk about this one person. I left the office. I was the shift supervisor or watch commander, whatever you want to call it, driving down the freeway, and I saw this Thunderbird just kind of weaving all over the place. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I pulled them over, and they didn't like us, the shift supervisors, to be tied up. They wanted just to have an adjacent beat. You want to pick them up and take them to jail, take the person to jail. I walked up to the car, and I thought this person looked familiar. And then I saw his name. It was the guy that had thrown me out of the. Talk about karma. I saw that, and I thought, thank you, Jesus. And I had the guy get out of the car and do a few field sobriety tests. And the adjacent beat unit came, and I said, you know something? I'm going to take this guy to jail myself. And it was, what a way to end a career. This actually happened. And I had him in the police car, and he was crying and carrying on about how he was going to lose his wife and everything. And I never told him who I was. Of course, I could read his mind in my life review. He didn't know who I was. He finally figured out when it came time to go to court. But I did my job. But talk about a small world. This actually happened. But anyways, getting back to, when I was a teenager, I had quite a few problems with driving, burning rubber, and the exhibition of speed, and reckless driving, and you name it. I experienced it. Everybody knew who I was, one of those types of things. And my parents went away at 12 years old. They went someplace, and I had a key made in my dad's truck, and I took off, and I got in a situation where the police were chasing me, and I had to relive that all over again. And I was probably one of the persons you would never think would become a policeman. But
Did you
but
just
I
like to
did.
drive fast cars? So
Yeah,
you could
I
get
had a
legally?
problem with that. And anyways, my sister was only 11 months younger than me, so my dad used to say that was my Irish twin. But she couldn't go out on a date unless I was also on a date. And my parents said, Robert, you have to be in the back seat. She can be in the front seat, like if we went to the drive-in. So I would always ask this one girl, because I knew she would never say no to me. I would rather be with my friends out cruising and being a hooligan. But there was a dance at the Coconut Grove in Santa Cruz, and she came over to my place, and I was working on my car, and she said, "You take me to the dance tonight at the Coconut Grove?" And I said, "I have plans for tonight." And she goes, "Well, can I do it with you?" And I said, "We really don't want any girls with us." And she goes, "What do you mean?" And then she got all mad at me and took off. And then she came back. She wrote a letter and came back and kind of threw it at me. And that night, I went with my friends, and we went cruising down Beach Street in Santa Cruz area. And this young lady went with a couple other friends, and she died in a car accident. And when I was looking at this part of my life review, I heard a voice say, "You never opened my letter." I knew who that was. I still have that letter. I never have opened it. It's somewhere in my storage shed. And I'm telling you, Peggy, I was so it really bothered me. It rocked me. And I had another situation where my neighbor was hemophiliac, and he couldn't play sports with us because he would bleed, and then it was hard to get him to stop bleeding. They didn't have the capabilities they have now with people who have those problems. And when I was looking at that part of my life, when I interacted with him, because I would go over and play board games with him, like Monopoly and stuff like that. And his mother would always make me cherry Kool-Aid and put a different type of, I don't know what she put in there with the sugar. But when I was reliving that part of my life review, I could taste that Kool-Aid.
I love cherry Kool-Aid.
It was phenomenal. And I thought, wow. Her name was Mrs. Brash. And I thought, oh my goodness. And when I was watching that, I heard a voice say from, it were souls, or it was like an auditorium, but it wasn't. It was packed with uh, people that, or I don't know if they weren't people, they were like spirits or whatever you want to call them. I don't know how to describe them, but they were, some of them were taking part of my life review. They were saying things to me. When I was watching this aspect, I heard a voice say, "You were my best friend." I told my father about this. This was in 2009 when I told my father about it. And my dad goes, I forgot to tell you, but around 1990 or somewhere around there in the 80s, Mr. Brash came by our house and told us that Paul had died from a blood transfusion. He had a bleeding incident down in Los Angeles, and they gave him a transfusion, and he caught AIDS from it. And then my dad goes, "I bet that was Paul." And I said, "I think it was." But the audience or participants or whatever you want to call them, they didn't hold back. They when I became a policeman, one of my first assignments on the highway patrol was to go to South Los Angeles, where Watts is, and right after the riots, and it was a war zone, Peggy. It really was. It was very uncomfortable to work there, and very uncomfortable for me because I had blonde hair, blue eyes, and I kind of stood out. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I felt uncomfortable. But one night, my friend, one of my guys I worked with, we were making a stop, and it wasn't unusual for you to make a stop in that area, and they pull you into an alley, which was right behind a apartment complex or whatever, and claim that they were home. Why arrest them because they're at their home or whatever. But we were arresting this guy for DUI or driving under the influence, and it wasn't uncommon to hear gunshots going off, like a war zone. And I heard some shots go off, and I looked at my partner, and he goes, "Those sound pretty close." And I said, "They sure do." And the next thing I know, I see this guy running at me with a rifle, and I yelled for him to stop, and he just kept coming. And I've said this in other talks. I probably would have been justified to draw down on him because he didn't follow my command, but I didn't. He came up and said that somebody had just robbed him and he'd fired some warning shots. And when I saw that aspect of my life review, I actually heard a voice say, "Thank you for not shooting me." That was him. I know it was. But I saw all these things happen. And if you've ever been through a divorce, Some of them probably get really nasty. Mine was. And I get asked this question usually when I speak, especially when I do it in front of a group, and the audience can raise their hand and ask questions. And my answer is usually the hardest thing I've had to overcome from my life review and from my experience, besides getting back physically, is dealing with betrayal. Because you know everything that happens to you. There's no secrets there. None whatsoever. And my ex-wife and I did not talk for a long time. It was not a very pleasant thing for my children. And our daughter, who's an attorney now, but she caught cancer and had to have some surgery. And I went up to be at the hospital while she was having an operation, and the same thing with her mother, my ex-wife. And we were sitting in the surgery waiting room. Then I thought, I'm going to do it. So I went up and I said, we have a daughter who's really bad sick. She might not make it. Maybe we ought to bury the hatchet and try and work to help her out. Because I said, I think it's going to take both of us. And so we made an agreement to do that. But I said, I would like to ask you just one question. And I did. She said, go ahead. I laid out some betrayal that I saw. And she confirmed it. So what I saw in my life review actually happened. Still very hard. I mean, you can be betrayed by not only ex-spouses, but people you work with, your neighbors, your friends. Your life review, you find out what they say behind your back. You find out everything. It's really hard to come back and have to deal with it. And I've had to apologize to people that I felt obligated if I had been done something that probably I felt was out of line. I've actually done that in some instances. But so here I am. This is going on. I felt something moving to my right. I still couldn't look at the higher power. The higher power was there. I mean, it was just like something with like a big weight on your shoulders and it's just like I couldn't look. But I looked over to the right, and my dog Scooter that passed away in 2001 was there. She was so happy to see me. And I thought to myself, I cannot believe I'm in this situation. And there's my dog right there. She couldn't come to me, but she was so happy to see me. And other things unfolded. I'm not going to get into them in too much detail. We had one situation where I got called up to the scene of what we thought was a traffic accident, where a vehicle ran off the road and hit a tree and caught on fire, and the driver was deceased and had been burned. And I got called up there as a shift supervisor. I went up there, and it was an unusual thing because the guy was laying across the seat with his arms like crossed on his chest. And And I told everybody, I said, "This, you ever see anything like this?" Because every time we'd seen somebody that had burned to death in a car wreck, usually they were like in the fetal position. And so I called the sheriff's department to come out there, and I said, "You may want to take a look at this. I don't know if this is a traffic accident. Looks to me like there might have been some foul play." Well, he says, "Well, that's a traffic accident." So I said, "Okay, we'll take it." And of course, that left me. He said, "Would you mind, before the coroner gets here, you want to go? We know where this guy lived, and so on and so forth." I said, "I'll do that. I'll go talk to his next of kin." And so, by the way, later on, it was determined that he had um, um, rounds or bullets in his chest. It had been a homicide, and probably he was where the wounds were. He's probably holding his chest. But anyways, I went. It was an isolated area. I found it. I drove up the driveway, and when I drove up the driveway, the lights inside the house came on, and I got out of my car, patrol car, and started to walk up, and I heard this woman scream inside the house. And I knocked on the door, and she was crying. And I said, "You have somebody here that could be with you while I talk to you?" And she goes, "No, I don't, but you're going to tell me my son died." And I said, "I can't lie to you." Yes. And so I held her and helped her get. I said, "Is anybody that can meet you if I took you down?" She goes, "There's nobody." So I made arrangements for her to be taken care of, where she could go um, take care of the funeral arrangements and all the other stuff. And when I was looking at this part of my life review, I heard a voice say, "Thank you for what you did for my mother." I had to be that young man. Had to be. And so I'm going to accelerate the process. I could talk all day on different things that I experienced, but I ended up back in my body. I'd been deceased for over 45 minutes. And it was, thank goodness, they had worked on me on the airplane, the defibrillator, and kept the oxygen going. And Peggy, I only lost the use of these two fingers on both hands, my ring finger and my little finger. And even that's starting to come back a little bit. But they revived me, and I was alive for a short period of time. And then I died again. And this experience was totally different than the other one. I was hovering on top of my bed, watching them work on me. I actually saw the flat line. I remember seeing the flat line.
You were in the hospital by then?
In the hospital, yeah. And thanks for asking. And so I was watching them, and all of a sudden my attention was diverted, and I was watching him in another part of the hospital, going through my personal things that had come in on the ambulance. They were trying to find out who the hell I was. And so they were going through my stuff, and I heard this guy say, "There must be insurance cards here somewhere." And I was trying to tell them where I kept my insurance cards. A lot of police rather, carry two wallets. One that has your normal stuff in it, and one that has your police ID and your badge in it. and my insurance cards were in my police wallet. I was trying to tell them that, and then I realized they can't hear me. I must be dead. So I ended up being revived again. And I was in intensive care. I had all these machines hooked up on me. I thought, I hope my daughter gets to see me and my son. And after that, the doctor flat out told me I was in really bad condition. And so he was talking to me one day in intensive care, and I was telling him about hovering over the bed and watching him work on me and watching him go through my stuff, looking for my insurance cards. He goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yes." So he went and got those people, brought them to my bed, and said, "You tell them what you told me." I told them, and they said, word for word, that's exactly what happened, what was said. So for your audience, if you hear somebody say they had a near-death experience that had a life review, or someone that said they had a near-death experience where they hovered over their bed, watched everybody, I had that happen to me on the same day. I don't think there's just one type, but that's what happened to me. So I ended up talking to the doctor. I said, "I want to go home." And he goes, "I don't think you should go home yet. You need another surgery." And I said, "I want to go home. I saw my kids, they're here. Put me on a plane and get me to Oregon. I want to get the hell out of here." He goes, "I don't think you should go." And I said, I want to go. So he found a colleague that he thought could do the procedure that I needed to have done in Oregon. And he says, "As soon as you get off that plane, you got to go in and get that done." And I said, "I'll do that." So I made it. I was kind of worried about even flying all the way to Oregon. I made it, got off the plane, got taken to, eventually I ended up at the hospital, and had a procedure done there. And I was in a recovery room, and it was like raining sideways. I could hear it on the window. And when I woke up in the recovery room, and I thought, yeah, it's pretty nasty out there. I could hear the wind blowing too. And all of a sudden I looked over to my left, and there was this old nun there. And I looked at her and I thought to myself, am I dead? Just really at the end of it? And so I asked, I says, "Am I dead?" And she laughed and she goes, "No, you're not dead." Says, those are just the stuff they gave you when they put you out to have your surgery. And I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And she goes, "I'm praying for you." And I said, "Well, thank you very much." And she goes, I have a request." And I said, "Well, what's that?" And she goes, "I understand you were deceased for a long time and revived." And I said, "Well, who told you that?" And she goes, "It's all over. I was like Lazarus." And I said, "That's what I heard." I said, I don't really know how long, or I've been told different time things." And she goes, "Do you remember what happened to you when you died?" And I said, "I do." And she goes, "I spent my whole life, adult life, being a nun," or she said a sister. And She said, would you mind telling me some of the things? And I said, well, not now. I'd like to. She goes, when you kind of recover a little bit. And I said, sure. So she came back. She's one of two people that I've told everything to. And it was so emotional. And I'm writing a book now, Peggy,
Okay.
and I'm starting the book with the nun and myself and telling her what happened to me and laying it out as I was telling her. And that's how my book has started. And it'll end with right back in the hospital talking to her. It was just like, I don't know whether divine intervention, something just popped up in my brain that that's the way to start the book. And so that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I am doing. And you know, I'm just so blessed. Michael Jackson, the rock star, passed away about the same time that I did, and was deceased for 45 minutes. And they took him someplace, UC Medical Center, because there was a doctor there renowned for raising the dead. He couldn't revive Michael Jackson. But I had a doctor from Pakistan and they wouldn't let me die. And I bet Michael Jackson would give everything he owned to have had 4,921 extra days of life, because that's me. I've been truly blessed. It's a blessing to talk to you, Peggy, to your audience. It's a blessing to get up in the morning and start the day. It's a blessing to be able to have seen my father again before he passed, my children. Next week, I'm going to go see my daughter, spend a week with her. So far, she's been cancer-free, but it's rough. But all these things are blessings.
Yeah.
And everything's small stuff, really, except something happens to a loved one, or I've said this before, like you get a ticket from the police, that's small stuff. You can deal with it. Now, if something happens to your family members, like they become real sick, like with cancer, or God forbid they die, well, then that's a different story. But for the most part, everything's pretty much small stuff. Boy, I've taken on that aspect of looking at life that way, and I've dedicated my life to Yvonne and I, Dr. Caseman and I, started Spiritual Awakenings International. We do that for experiencers because a lot of people kind of put you in a category that maybe like I think you're crazy, or there was probably a time they would burn you at the stake,
Right.
so you don't talk about it. It's really hard to get out and talk about these things. And some people are going to believe you, some people aren't. I've reached that point in time where I'm just going to say what I have to say and see what happens.
Let the chips fall where they may.
Yep. But I know when you pass, you're held accountable. I'm just hoping that when I pass, I won't have to start my life review from the beginning again and go through see myself. I hope it's from March 22nd, 2009 until the day I die again. Because I've tried to be a Boy Scout the whole
Don't show
since
me
I
a
passed.
rerun.
I mean, Spiritual Awakenings International is just one thing. I write grants for like homeless shelters and disabled veterans and all these different causes, um, and pretty much decided that's how I'm going to end my life, is doing things like that. But
We want to guarantee our place,
I
our seat.
who knows what's going to happen. But I mean, like I said, I'm not. I've tried to be. I've tried to be different, but I've probably talked too much. But
Oh no, no.
I think I'm done talking for right now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been so interesting. And I love that you are doing something positive with your NDE, starting the Spiritual Awakening International and the grants you do and the things, living your life, differently, because I think that's what we should do. We've had an NDE is do something with that.
You know, um, I have linked with people all over the world, spoke with people all over the world, spoke to groups all over the world, and it's not easy to put yourself out there,
Right.
but I have been personally amazed at the response and the people that communicate and say, um, I've been afraid to talk about this or talk about that. And I can only imagine, I brought this up earlier, a Marco Polo, Christopher Columbus, or even like Mark Twain, who would experience things. And Christopher Columbus and Marco Polo would go before the queen or the king from the countries they represented and tell them what they saw without pictures, without video. And I'm cast in the same role. Same thing with Mark Twain. Mark Twain would start talking, like in San Francisco, I was reading where his first talk, he talked about going to India or someplace like that. First talk would maybe be like 6 people or a dozen people. And then pretty soon they just started to pack his talks. I don't know if that's happening with me, but when I go and I look at the YouTube videos, I never really see myself talk again. But I have checked to see how many views, like on YouTube, and one of them I just recently had was like 100,000 in 3 months.
Good job.
That's pretty significant, and opportunities to speak all over the world.
Awesome.
But your audience, I would recommend they go to spiritualawakeningsinternational.org, sign up, it's free, check out all the videos, the presentations are free, the sharing circles are absolutely awesome. They're my favorite thing. And when you talk to people, like if you're in a group, one group I was in, I was the only person from America there. There was somebody from Tasmania, somebody from the Netherlands, somebody from Spain, somebody from Colombia, somebody from Mexico, for example, and somebody from Canada, all in the same group. Somebody from Ireland too. And we were talking with each other with a common interest, which is what happens to you when you die. One of the 10 top questions of all time. And I had a hard time coming forward. The TV show I Survived Beyond and Back booked me, and I had a hard time talking to that during that show, putting myself out, but I did. And next thing I know, I'm talking on another show. I'm featured right now on the National Geographic Channel, Visiting the Beyond, William Shatner's show, Unresolved. Netflix came out. It's just same message, different venues. Your podcast channel is another venue, and you have a different targeted audience. And I personally like your audience because it's in sync with how I believe. So I'll come back anytime.
Okay.
We're friends,
Yes.
and we will remain friends. And everything that I say, I stand by. I could talk for hours on my life review, but I'm not going to bore people with that.
Now, did you say you're writing a book?
Yeah,
What
this
was-
will be just on the. I actually have one written from my first year in police work, which is I haven't had it published yet. I've had offers to have it published, but this one I'm working on now has to do with my near-death experience, dying, and we decided to put that out first.
You want to come back on after it's published? You can tell
Oh
people
yeah,
about your book?
yeah.
No?
I'll
Or do you
probably
know-
send you a copy to review it.
Okay. Do you know the name of it or when it'll be published?
There's probably 4 or 5 names, so
Okay.
but one of the words in it will be reckoning. It was a reckoning for me,
Okay.
but
I
thanks
can
for
always update the description and put the name of your book in there when you get it
that's
published.
true. But God bless you. God bless your audience. And any questions, you can get a hold of me through Peggy.
Okay.
And thanks, Peggy.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
All right.
See you all.